Chapter 19 Chitta-nupassana, Contemplation on Mind. Those who aspire to attain the final enlightenment must pass through Sota Paticcasamuppada, Sayadaw Maha, and Anagami Maha. It is a widely known fact that in order to attain the first stage, Sota Paticcasamuppada, we have to exterminate ditthi and vicikiccha. In the Maha Vinodani commentary, it is said, ditthi karitasapi mandasa natipa pedagatam chitta-nupassana satipattanam visuddhimago, which means that for the yogi who has the propensity for ditthi and who is intellectually dull, a simple and unelaboratory for ditthi, and who is intellectually formulated chitta-nupassana is suitable for realization of Maha. The late Maha Thera Mogok Sayadaw formulated a very simple and elaborate method of contemplation on chitta-nupassana, which is easily applicable and suitable for the people of present day who are inclined to have more practical application. The following 13 kinds of chitta, vijnana, and consciousness are to be contemplated upon. It is to be noted that not all the 13 kinds of consciousness are to be contemplated at the same time. No, it is not. Only one at a time is to be contemplated or observed as and when it arises. It must be remembered that only one consciousness can arise at a time. It is said, Ajnanam upajati chittam, ajnanam chittam nirujati. One consciousness vanishes and another consciousness arises. It is generally believed that there are many kinds of chitta, mind, which occurs in our being. There may be 1,000 or 2,000 chittas, but they fall into classification of only 13 chittas as formulated by the late Maha Thera Sayadaw. They are as follows: 1. Eye consciousness, 2. Ear consciousness, 3. Nose consciousness, 4. Tongue consciousness, 5. Body consciousness. They are called external visiting consciousness. 6. Lobha consciousness, 7. Dosa consciousness, 8. Moha consciousness, 9. Alobha consciousness, 10. Adosa consciousness, 11. Mono or mind consciousness. They are called internal visiting consciousness. 12. In-breathing consciousness, 13. Out-breathing consciousness. These two are called host consciousness. The above 13 kinds of chitta are all embracing and cover all the chittas which belongs to the ordinary worldling, and it should be noted that whatever chitta arises, it is only because of the impact of aratmana and dvara, object and sense door, and that only through these 6 sense doors consciousness can arise. Chitta will not and can never arise outside the 6 sense doors. It should also be noted that chitta and vedana are sahajata dhammas, coexisting phenomena. Moreover, vedana and sanya are classified as chitta sankhara. It cannot be said that when namakanda is contemplated, rupakanda is excluded, as the khandas are co-arising, coexisting, and co-vanishing phenomena, sampayutta dhamma. It can be said that the contemplation of one kind covers all the remaining khandas, but here, as citta is the most predominant and pronounced phenomenon. It is taken and named Cittanupassana. As a matter of fact, all the 5 khandhas in a being are interrelated, and so it is just like lime juice syrup, in which all the ingredients such as sugar, fruit juice and salt and water are included. Therefore, when Cittanupassana meditation is practiced, Kayanupassana is included, because in-breathing consciousness and out-breathing consciousness are incorporated here as host consciousness in the Cittanupassana. As such, it could not be said that either Kayanupassana or Vedananupassana is excluded. Eventually, all the other anupassanas are confluent and have to terminate in Dhammanupassana, where Satya is the final and deciding factor. Reference to the list of 13 kinds of cittas is invited. There is lobha cittas, to eat, to smell, etc. Isa Machirya comes under dosa, consciousness or thought. To give alms come under alobha or vitara raga. Utacha citta comes under moha, amoha citta. Wisdom is not included in the 13 cittas. The question may arise, why is this amoha citta not included in the 13 cittas? The answer is that amoha is samaditi maga ganga, or panya, wisdom, which is the meditator, whereas the 13 cittas are to be meditated upon. These cittas arise singly, one at a time, as has previously been mentioned. It is generally considered to be too many cittas for one to meditate upon and too difficult to comprehend and cognize. The yogi is reminded that consciousness occurs or arises only one at a time. Moreover, observing or watching one's own mind cannot be said to be very difficult, because one can easily tell what kind of consciousness or thought is passing in one's being mind. If lobha cittas arise, one can tell exactly that lobha arises, and so on. Therefore, it is to be borne in mind that the observation and watching of our own citta or consciousness on its arising and vanishing can be put to convenient practice and contemplated upon by anybody without any difficulty. There should be no doubt that if the yogi fully comprehends and is cognizant of the arising and vanishing of consciousness, he can be said to be on the right path to entrance to Nibbana. When we open our eyes, we see everything before our eyes. This is what we may call the arising of the I consciousness, and it is for the yogi to comprehend and to be cognizant of this arising. When he hears a sound, the ear consciousness arises, and this arising must be cognized and comprehended. Again, when the tongue consciousness arises, this arising must be cognized and comprehended. Again, if he feels irritation or itch, pleasurable or unpleasurable feeling, there arises only body consciousness. The yogi must comprehend and be cognizant of every arising and vanishing, as whatever consciousness arises. It arises only one at a time. It is unnatural and impossible for the consciousness to rise in twos or threes. In the course of practice, the comprehension or insight of the yogi becomes more pronounced, and his mindfulness also becomes centered on the arising and vanishing only. His unawareness of the arising and vanishing consciousness becomes less and far between. Generally, at this point, the yogi clearly sees with insight that whatever consciousness arises, be it lobha dosa, moha adosa, alobha, it terminates itself in vanishing or passing away. He can clearly see that no consciousness can remain for two successive moments at the same time. The lifespan of consciousness is 1, 2. It is said, anyam upajati chitam anyam jitam nirojati. It means one consciousness arises after another consciousness which has already vanished. Therefore, when contemplating on citta, the yogi will only find that the consciousness which he contemplates upon has already perished. It is said, hutava a bhava vatena a no cham. It means it is impermanent because it vanishes immediately after it has arisen. Hence, when the yogi meditates or observes whatever consciousness, he will find only anicca, or the perishing or vanishing of the consciousness. Yet, should he still persist in finding that the consciousness or citta does not vanish or disappear, it must be said that it is not anicca nupassana, and as such the yogi does not pass beyond the nicca sanya. He must yet endeavour to perceive the nature of the khandha, i.e. its arising and perishing. When anicca is seen or realized by the yogi or vipassana insight, dukkha will be seen and realized. When dukkha is seen and realized by vipassana insight, anatta will be seen and realized too. Anicca can never be realized in the strict sense by merely reciting anicca, anicca. It is important for the yogi to observe and watch that anicca impermanence, which the khandha shows and reveals all the time, and not the anicca of his own making by reciting the words or reading a rosary. The phenomenon of arising and perishing or vanishing is always happening in our being, which is called anicca dhamma, and is always showing that the khandhas are appearing as well as disappearing. It is only with the vipassana insight that the yogi would be able to perceive it. It should be reiterated again that arising and dissolution of consciousness is called citta niyama, which in its natural course goes on ad infinitum. The true knowledge of the khandhas, which have the characteristics of such appearing and dissolution, is called yata bhuta yana. It means the knowledge that there is nothing but arising and vanishing of the khandhas in our being. In other words, it is knowledge of what the khandhas really are. The fleeting state of arising and dissolution is so rapid that it is indescribable and beyond comprehension. It is not necessary for the yogi to know exactly how rapid it is according to Viti. What is essential at this stage is to comprehend only the arising and the perishing of the khandhas. Again, coming to the host consciousness, the yogi must be observant and mindful of the in-breathing consciousness and out-breathing consciousness. That is, he must be observant and mindful of the arising as well as the vanishing or passing away of these two types of consciousness. When in-breathing consciousness is watched and observed, it will be found that it has already perished and disappeared. Similarly, when the out-breathing consciousness is watched and observed, it will be found, too, that it has already perished and disappeared. Hence the consciousness that has already perished and disappeared is called anicca, and the next following consciousness which perceives that the previous one has already perished and disappeared is called Magga, Vipassana Magga. During his contemplation and observation, the yogi will be mostly aware of the in-breathing and out-breathing consciousness, and also of the consciousness which perceives the impermanent nature of them. Thus the yogi should try to have only two things in his mind, i.e. anicca and magga. External and internal visiting consciousness are so named because they will visit occasionally. Pali text say pa ba sara midam bhikkhave chittam agan tukehi upakilesehi, which implies that some thoughts are occasional visitors. It may be asked, when and where is this citta-nupassana to be practiced? At the vipassana centers or monasteries? The answer is citta-nupassana can be practiced at the place where consciousness arises. Should the arising of citta thought occur while walking, meditation must be done while walking. It must be observed and cognized that each and every consciousness not only arises but also perishes with each and every step. While the arising of consciousness occur while eating, drinking, meditation must be done then and there accordingly. If it occurs while sitting at your office table, the meditation must be done then and there too. In meditation, what is exactly required by the yogi to do is observation of one's own consciousness with watchful awareness and understanding. The closer the watchfulness and observation of the arising and perishing, the more beneficial will it be to the yogi. Should there be more distraction, restlessness and confusion, kilesa, lobha, dosa and moha will find an easy place to abide and dwell in your being, in which case it is better for the yogi to observe and the arising and perishing of whatever comes in. For more clarification, for the benefit of the yogi, it is explained here again that the preceding citta which has already vanished is anicca, and the next immediately following citta meditating one, which observes and watched and meditates, is called magga. Hence anicca is followed by magga, or in other words, the vanishing citta or consciousness is called anicca because of its transient successive moments, the same. And this vanished citta, which is magga, because this immediately following consciousness is vipassana samadhi or vipassana magga. Hence there will be a series and sequence of events, i.e. anicca magga. It is important for the practicing yogi to see in their vipassana practice that the preceding anicca and the next following magga go on concurrently one after another, without allowing kilesa to creep in between, i.e. anicca magga. In other words, the consciousness of cittas perished and disappeared are not to be missed, but they must be promptly noted and observed and understood that the preceding citta is anicca, because it has perished, and the next immediately following citta or consciousness is called magga, because it perceives that the preceding citta has already perished and disappeared. During the practicing period, the yogi will come across all sorts of cittas, which are relevant or irrelevant, desirable or undesirable. They must be also contemplated upon as object of meditation. Yogis should not in any way be disappointed or frustrated by these distractions, but these are to be regarded as objects of meditation only. In the 6 attributes of Dhamma, it is said, Ehi Pasiko, this means come and look. Hence the Dhamma is calling everyone to come and see and to meditate upon it, which is incessantly undergoing the anicca Dhamma of arising and perishing. When there are only a few misses in the yogi's observation and watchfulness in his vipassana practice, it can be said that he has developed to some extent, thereby following only the process of arising and perishing, without allowing any kilesa defilements to come in between. It can be said that the aspirant yogi has reached the stage when he can shatter the fetters of kilesa, the defilements, and that the first stage, Sotapatti Magga, cannot be far too distant to achieve. The Buddha said, Ida bhikkhave ariya savako cittam anicca nupassi viharati anicca sanya anicca patisamvedi sasatam samitam abokinnam cetasa adimucca mano panya pariyoga mano so asavanam kaya anasavam ceto vimutim panya vimutim Diteva dhamme sayama binya sacha kitava upasampaja viharati angutara. It means that the disciple of the Arya, Noble One, dwells contemplating on citta all the time without a miss, fully knowing, comprehending with insight that it is transient, impermanent and unenduring, and cannot remain 2 successive moments the same. Thus the disciple of the Arya, imbued with the only knowledge of anicca, without having any further kilesa, and free from asava defilements, where there is no kilesa defilement between the preceding anicca and following magga, it is said that the supreme enlightenment can be achieved within 7 days. Majjhima Panasa can attain and realize Nibbana in this very existence. It is the yogi to disallow any kilesa defilement to come in during his practice of vipassana, and to strive to concentrate world knowledge and comprehension on the arising and perishing of whatever citta which the Dhamma is always showing and revealing. Attainment of the insight of the arising and perishing amounts to the attainment of Udaya Bhaya or Yata Bhuta Yana, by which one sees the khandhas as they really are, i.e. they are nothing but arising and vanishing or dukkha satya. Question may arise, what benefit does the yogi derive who attains the knowledge of arising and perishing of the khandhas? The answer is, for example, on the arising of lobha consciousness, if vipassana is contemplated, yogi comprehends the lobha consciousness is nowhere to be found, but instead there is only the arising and perishing of it, which means there is no more lobha citta. Hence the process of Paticcasamuppada is cut asunder in the middle, or in other words, Lobachita is killed. Whereas if there is no contemplation on Lobachita, it will inevitably be followed by Upadana, which is in turn will be followed by Jati. When Jati is obtained, it amounts to obtaining dukkha, and eventually Paticcasamuppada is circumscribed. The cycle of samsara continues to set forth to make the round of rebirth ad infinitum. It should be borne in mind that the practice of contemplation on arising and perishing, i.e. anicca, amounts to putting a stop to the round of rebirth, samsara. This is the work for breaking asunder the spokes of the wheel of samsara. It is the work for cutting asunder the links and chains of the Paticcasamuppada, or in other words, it is the work for exterminating avijja and trying to gain the insight avijja by contemplating of udaya and vaya, i.e. arising and perishing of panchakanda, which intrinsically is nothing but dukkha satcha, that can only be perceived and comprehended by vipassana insight. When this penetrative insight is gained, vijja appears and avijja disappears. In the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, it is said, Chakkumudapa upadani yanam upadani panya upadani vijja upadani aloka upadani. It means that when penetrative insight into dukkha satcha is obtained, avijja becomes vijja. Hence it is said avijja disappears and vijja comes in its place. According to Paticcasamuppada, when avijja becomes vijja, Sankara has no force to link vijnanam. In other words, section 1 cannot link with section 2. Reference of diagram is invited. When the linking does not take place, Sankara does not build up or produce any result that may bring about a fresh jati, generally upaya jati. The Buddha said, out of 100 dead, there can hardly be a single being who attains a higher plane of existence. Nakasika Sutta. Or in other words, Paticcasamuppada is broken from the beginning. Linking means building up of fresh khandhas for the next existence. By practicing vipassana, new sets of functions which tend to produce material for jati, new existence for rebirth, will not be forthcoming. They will stop from the moment when avijja becomes vijja. Hence it must be definitely said that the links of Paticcasamuppada are broken from the beginning. Therefore there will be no more building of upaya khandhas. When ditthi is eliminated, all the khandhas that are the consequent will come to a stop. Similarly, vicha kicha can be eliminated, and when it is done, all the khandhas which arise because of vicha kicha will come to a stop. And in the same manner, step by step, all the resultant khandhas that are the caused by other kilesas or anusayas will come to a stop. That is the reason why the late Maha Thera Mogok Sayadaw, with great compassion, repeatedly exhorted yogis to meditate upon the arising and perishing of the khandhas. When the yogi attains the knowledge of arising and perishing of the khandhas, it is called yathabhuta jnana. When the mind is disgusted with the nature of the ceaselessly arising and perishing of the khandhas, his knowledge is called nibbada jnana. When the yogi, after gaining the knowledge, keeps on meditating, culminates in the end of the arising and perishing of the khandhas, this is called Magga Jnana. With the attainment of these 3 stages of jnana, he becomes a Mahasotapanna. This stage is far better and higher than the position of the monarch of the universe, or the Chakaraja, or of Devaloka, because according to the saying of the Buddhas, Kutta Peyecha Vipamoto, Sotapanna is free from danger of falling into 4 stages of apaya, miserable existence. And again in the same sutta it is said, Kachabi Tanani Ababa Katum. It means that a Sotapanna will become a leper or deaf, dumb, blind, or crippled. At the most, there are only 7 existences for him before he eventually obtains the highest stage of Arahata Maggapala and the final state of Nibbana. According to the Paticcasamuppada, in the yogi, knowing only the arising and perishing of the khandhas, as arising and perishing is dukkha, and the knowledge there is magga, which is vijja magga, the Paticcasamuppada is broken in the beginning. As a result, tanha, mana, ditthi are also eliminated. Therefore the Paticcasamuppada is broken asunder in the middle. Moreover, there is no opportunity for dukkha, domanassa, upayasa to arise, hence the Paticcasamuppada is broken in the end. According to Satcha, the arising and perishing is dukkha Satcha. The knowledge there is of Magga Satcha, extermination of tanha, mana, ditthi, is the cessation of samudaya Satcha. Non-appearance of jati, jara, marana is nirodha Satcha. Therefore meditation or contemplation on arising and perishing amounts to or covers the whole of the 4 Noble Truths. Katu Ariya Satcha. Hence this Vipassana meditation should be practiced as soon as possible. If the yogi is late by 1 day, he will lose the opportunity for 1 day, which means that any untoward thing can happen to him at any time. Moreover, there is the imminent danger of disease and death in this high pressure age. This practice of Vipassana is the only way which can forestall any latent danger of falling into apaya bhumi, woeful existence in the next rebirth.